Do you have a story about your cousin Bert?
Oh, Uncle Bert.
Or your Uncle Bert?
He was my uncle.
Okay.
He was living.
My mom says you have a funny story about him.
He was a bachelor. He ran away from home, and he was Dad's brother.
Okay.
He was probably about, I don't know, was the older dad or not. But Dad said he ran away, went west when he was 12 years old, and he did all kinds of things. He was a stevedore on the docks of Seattle, and things, worked as a cook in a logging camp, and various things like that. He never married. He'd come back on the railroad about once every 3-4 years with a buckskin-jacket and all this. Tell all these wild stories about the far west. I remember he came home when I was probably 4 or 5 or something like that. Then when I was about 14, my dad got me passes on the railroad, and I had $30, and I went from the local town, Streeter, which was the next biggest town. I went to Denver, and I went to Salt Lake City, and I went to Portland, Oregon, and then to Oregon City. And my uncle, he had about 10 acres, and he grew flower bulbs and other things like garlic. And I spent about 2 or 3 weeks with him, and when I was there, he had this 2-room building. Of course, there was no finishing on the inside, but on the inside he'd have these big braids of garlic drying.
Did he sell them?
Pardon?
Did he sell them, or what did he do? Okay.
But that's the way they were marketed, I guess, in those days.
So you rode the train all the way out there by yourself when you were 14?
Yeah.
Was that scary?
Well, I kind of organized the thing so I would ride on the train at night and stop in daytime, like in Denver. I remember I spent my first $5 getting a ride up Pikes Peak. That's about. Then I went to Salt Lake City, and I spent, I think, a day there. And of course, got the train at night and went on to it took quite a while to get to Oregon, to Portland, as I remember. Probably I spent a night or 2 on the train.
So how many days did it take to get there from Dana? A couple.
I think it took 1 day to get to, maybe it was 2 days to get to Denver from Streeter. Yeah. In those days you could eat on the train for $1. You could.
That sounds expensive.
Well,
$1 for every meal?
no, that was for a day's meals.
Okay.
That was about about the average price. So I managed to survive. And then when I was at my uncle's in this little farm, I built a big suitcase, or a big trunk-like thing, and I got all kinds of flower bulbs from my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
I boxed them up, and including some garlic, which I didn't know what it was in those days. But once we walked to Oregon City to some sort of a old-timers day in Oregon City. It was about 2 miles, and he bought some meat, and of course he had no refrigeration or anything. We got back to his house about midnight, and he says, "Kid, we gotta eat this meat. It's not gonna keep any longer." And we had this meat, I suppose it was, I can't remember what it was, but fried, smothered in garlic.
Was it good?
I can't remember. You never had to wash dishes there either. So all you did, the windows were always open, and he had lots of cats. The cats would always have them cleaning in the morning.
Oh.
Anyway.
So he had the true bachelor's life.
I survived. After, of course, left there, I went from Oregon City down to San Francisco. I spent the day in San Francisco, and I was getting tired, and I wanted to get home. I would have had tickets to go to Los Angeles, but I decided to come on home, and I came on the way home in the Grand Canyon, and I didn't have enough money to in order to go from the top down to the bottom, you had to get on a mule.
Right. They still do that.
And I think it was about $5, and that was more money than I wanted to spend. And so anyway, I bought myself some stuff for lunch, and I walked down the path all the way down to the bottom.
You walked all the way down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
And then you made it back up?
Yeah, I guess so. And I took the train back home. And when I went back home, that was when the drought affected in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went through Kansas and there wasn't a green grass, and it wasn't anything green left.